I'm Ian Dille.
I'm Jonny Sundt, and today on Ian and Friends, we are recapping the DVV race in Ronsa, the race in Overijse on Sunday, US National Championships that happened this weekend, and then looking forward to the Kerst period of cyclocrosses coming up over the holidays.
Let's start with the elite men's race at Hottoncross, the fourth round of the DVV series. You might notice Jonny and I are not wearing beards. We are clean shaven. We went and saw my friend Nick at Geyser Barbering. He took a straight razor to our faces, took these disgusting masses of hair off our cheeks and chin, although I was getting quite a few compliments on mine.
You were probably a couple weeks away, so.
But why? Why are we clean shaven?
We're here because it had to end some point. Even Matthew said it had to end. 35 races, winning streak, done. And so this clean shave is thanks to Toon Aerts, who had and honestly has to be the story of that race, was Toon Aerts, who has been so good this year and so consistent, but not winning. The rise of Ellie Ezerbit really, put him on his heels. He didn't ride bad at any of the U.S. races either. He's always been there, but Ellie has been the story. And then the return of Mathieu van der Poel, and he's been the bridesmaid so many times. And today, or on Saturday, he not just won a race, but he won a race with Mathieu van der Poel, with Ellie Ezerbet, with everybody there. He put one together, and it was a really dominant performance. Such a hard course, a course where everybody falls. It's heavy, it's muddy, there's big run-ups, lots of off-campers, a very Swiss-style, mountainous farm fields, and he put it together.
Yeah, I think fair enough. I mean, we're making this about Mathieu van der Poel, and Mathieu van der Poel losing. Us shaving our faces is the main storyline here, but the real storyline should be Toon Aerts gets another big win to, piggyback on his big wins from last season, the World Cups, Overijse, the Belgian National Championship, against a stacked field, against everyone in the elite field. I mean, we saw that he won Super Prestige Zonhoven. The asterisk there was Mathieu van der Poel was not there. Van der Poel was off doing a training camp, came back and did not have the legs he was looking for, which is kind of cool. I mean, Mathieu van der Poel is human. He can be beaten. He
looked a little flat. Bear in mind, he was still third. He went to the front like he does. He rode, and it became evident with the heavy course, and when Toon started riding really well, and then Ellie came right by him and just rode around in third. But in his post-race interview, because of the language difference, I couldn't go word for word for you, but he didn't seem down at all. And then the next day he showed why.
Yeah, in Overijse, Mathieu van der Poel took the lead and never relinquished it. It was a classic Van der Poel performance, really just a showcase. But let's also back up and talk about the elite women at Hottoncross, because
absolutely,
there we saw another rider in the elite women's field who really is emerging as the dominant rider of this season so far.
I have a hard time, every time I say someone's a dominant rider, someone else steps up the next week. And we still are awaiting the returns of some very world-class riders to the sport. We saw Marianne Vos come back and win a race immediately. Celine del Carmen Alvarado is a fantastic bike handler. And she is, I think at Hottoncross, she delineated herself because it's a course where everybody crashes. It's so slippery, it's so muddy. And a lot of these Dutch ladies have been so closely matched this year that it's every time we say, it's Annemarie Worst, she is the favorite now, and then Yara Kastelein starts winning races. Yara Kastelein, she is the one, she's winning, and then Alvarado wins. But in this really tricky day, so much mud, so technical, so heavy, she just rode her bike so well. And bear in mind, she had a massive mishap in the pit with her bike change.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I think that really showed her maturity, her poise. She's coming through the pit. It's so slick, it's so slippery. They're having to run through the pit. They're not riding through the pit. Her mechanic is trying to get her a bike. He slips, falls on her bike. She picks it up out from underneath him, just starts running with it like nothing happened. And then my favorite part is she spins her front wheel, notices that her bars are turned, so just stops, puts her front wheel in between her knees and cranks her bikes back into center. Keeps on riding, never gives up the lead. Just phenomenal.
She had a fantastic lead at that point. So if this was a close race, it could have been a big problem. And, totally armchair quarterback, and to just dig into it, her mechanics were running down the pit to try to exchange sooner. If they would have stayed put, they were trying to somehow mitigate the distance she had to run with her dirty bike. But by that hustle, he slipped, fell on top of the bike. Good chance he actually, because the bars spun around, that he's a big guy, that he may have broken that bike, because the next time she pitted, it wasn't the matching pair of European champions bike, it was another Canyon. So I went down that rabbit hole, like something happened to that bike. They did not put that bike back in service after she did. But yeah, she showed a ton of maturity, because she basically just told the mechanics to leave. She straightened out. The bars weren't 100% straight, which can totally throw you off when you're trying to slice and dice and find a rut this big. Your bar's just a little bit. I don't know if you've ever ridden with your bars slightly off. It's pretty off.
All my handlebars are always off like that. Like, I'll be riding with somebody who's a bike fitter, and they're like, "Dude, your handlebars are off by like a centimeter." I'm like, "Oh."
It's because I had a mechanic on Kelly Benefit Strategies that all our handlebars would be off, and he swore they were straight.
They actually make like a laser you can put on top of your handlebars, and But anyways.
But she showed incredible poise. Went through it, but she was riding her bike so well, and she just, it was a course that really exposed Mathieu having a bit of an off day. Yara Kostlein really struggled on Saturday. She had a bunch of falls, managed a very good result still, but it definitely showed Alvarado as probably the best bike handler of the bunch.
Yeah, and I love this Ronce course. We didn't see it in the DVV series last year. We saw a great race there in 2017. Happy to see it return. Let's go fast forward to the next day in Over Icy. Obviously, we saw Van der Poel back to his Van der Poel form. In the women's race, for me, Anna-Marie Worst rode away with this race. It was a classic Anna-Marie Worst type victory. I think what was interesting was Lucinda Brand was really exposed in this race. 3 years ago, 2017, we saw Lucinda Brand, when she was on Sunweb, just have an awful, horrible, no good day on a muddy, slippery, snow-slickened, over icy course. A year later, she came back and won that race, overcame a couple tumbles, and the storyline there was, hey, she's getting better, her bike handling is on point. This year, she really was exposed as not quite being there on the same level as Anna-Marie Worst, a rider with superior handling skills. Just watching them go head-to-head on this over icy course, it was so clear Worst was a better bike driver.
Yeah, over ice is a course that will absolutely expose weaknesses. It's very technical. We didn't have Alvarado there, so it was a little bit of trouble. Take out Alvarado, add in a fresh Brand. Bronze is a very heavy course, so for Worst to do that 2 days in a row, she was second at Ronsa, to come back and put together a performance like that. Brand was very strong, but it was very clear, like you said, some of the really tricky rutted descents. It exposed her bike handling, which, she acknowledges she needs to work on that, and she's been doing work with the Telenet team and Sven Nys and Paul Van den Bosch, but there's still work to be done, and it really did have it was a factor in that race.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of factors in races, let's get into the US National Championships. 2 new champions crowned. We called the shot in our rankings a week prior. Clara Honsinger, the #1 ranked elite woman in the FloBikes US Cross Racer rankings, took the title away from Katie Compton. Incredible ride by Honsinger. But the real story of this race was Gage Hecht in the elite men's race and the crash, the tangle up with Carrie Werner. This has destroyed the cyclocross internet.
Yeah.
Oh, go! Oh,
After spending some time looking at it and talking to people who are actually there, notably Tim Johnson, thank you for spending some time with us. And by the way, before I get into that, I have to shout out Tim Johnson and Meredith Miller and Brad Soner for a fantastic job. It was really good live coverage from the US National Championship.
Yeah,
this weekend.
the whole team, the drone shot.
It was really
coverage.
it was good, and like something that we try to always bring you really good cross coverage and game recognized game. You guys did a fantastic job. Anyway, for the incident that happened in the tape on the first lap, I'm gonna start with saying, calm down. Everybody, just calm down. It's a racing incident. It happens, and we went into the rules. Some people misinterpreted some things. In downhill racing and enduro racing, if you leave the course and you enter and you miss a course stake, that's an immediate disqualification. That does not apply to cross country and cyclocross.
Yeah, we did dig into the UCI rulebook. We went deep into the UCI rulebook, and there's not a lot of rules and regulations around this. The UCI code mandating going off the course is actually pretty simple. If a rider accidentally goes off course, to be in danger of a disqualification, a penalty, relegation, they have to gain a distinct advantage. In this incident, Gage Hecht, as Tim Johnson said, using twice as much speed as he needed to go down this hill, flying into the course tape, ultimately taking down Kerry Werner, who was just behind him. You could make the argument that he definitely did not gain an advantage over his competitors by going off course, accidentally going off course.
Yeah, and honestly, if those would have been the wooden posts that are around on a lot of that course instead of the plastic stakes, we'd probably be congratulating Kerry Werner on his national championship and wishing Gage Hecht a speedy recovery from his injuries. It could have been way worse. Now, we weren't there. Tim Johnson was there. He did talk to the riders. First of all, and to clear up some things, Kerry Werner did not file a protest. He took the high road in that. I don't think he understands that it was probably a racing incident. He probably gutted. He had a great chance to win a championship. But also, Tim said that Gage felt really bad about it, but it's something that happens in bike racing.
So here's my take. In watching the race, it looked to me like Kerry Werner was on the limit. He was bobbing back and forth off of Gage's wheel, and given Gage was riding out of his mind. He was riding like an under 23 rider in the elite race who had absolutely nothing to lose, and we saw that when he lost control and went into the crowd. But I think Kerry did not have that like extra 0.5% of just energy of clarity that he needed to recognize that Gage was going down that hill way too fast, to switch his line, to take a different route to avoid that crash. I mean, we see Mathieu van der Poel do incredible things on a bike, cat-like reflexes in terms of avoiding a crash. And a lot of the times, it's just because he's working a lot less hard than everybody else. You know, in this instant, Kerry Werner is in charge of his own front wheel, and yeah, he's not expecting course tape to suddenly fly into that front wheel, but it is on him to avoid that crash of a rider in front of him.
Classic victim blaming from Ian Dille, ladies and gentlemen. Now, aside from all of that, Gage Hecht, we cannot let this take away that Gage Hecht, this young man who is still eligible to be an under 23 rider, put together an amazing performance to win a national championship at a young age. He took the race from the front. He survived getting really loose on the descent. Almost that incident could have put him out of the race easily. He rode his own race. He kept a charging pair of teammates at bay. Used his time trial ability and dug super deep. None of this should take away from that amazing ride from this huge young talent.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when Gage Hecht was just emerging on the scene, 2017 Pan Ams, and he was just kind of a guy that was starting to surprise the elite riders. And here we are a couple years later, he's the US national champion. So yeah, kudos to Gage, and we're going to get into this in another show, but it will be interesting to see what Gage does with this cyclocross career, with this national championship jersey, because he's also a national champion on the road. Let's get in. I think we've put this controversy to bed.
I would like to revisit the women's race for just a second, because we did gloss over it, because an end of an era.
Yeah.
I don't think, and I will put this out there, no one will ever, man or woman, have a streak of national championships in the elites like Katie Compton did. So congratulations to her, 15 years in a row. And, she was very gracious in defeat. And she knew it was happening eventually, like you have, that it's just an inevitability. But the youth movement that came up, and Becca Fahringer rode her race. She called her shot. She put it out there. She took the race from the gun, and we could armchair quarterback her all day long. Did she use too much on the first lap? Honestly, it played perfectly for Claire Honsinger. I mean, Becca might as well have had a S&M jersey on for the first 2 laps of that race, because they put Katie Compton on her heels a little bit. You let Katie Compton settle into a race, she's going to find a way to beat you. But they didn't. They took the race to her. Becca took the race to her, went out there, rode very boldly, and it worked to Clara's advantage. But kudos to her for sticking to her game plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Second place at the national championship is a big ride for a rider who doesn't have a lot of the years in the sport like a lot of the other young riders do. So hat tip there. So I wanted to go back and visit that, because we don't want to gloss over what the fantastic race that was.
Yeah, I think absolutely. Katie Compton, we salute you. 15 years, U.S. national champion. No one is ever going to do that again. Just the attention to detail, the dedication, and I think what's most impressive to me is all that she's overcome to accomplish that. I mean, from mysterious leg pains to breathing issues to horrific saddle sore type injuries, Katie Compton has always put it together on this one day every year to be the best rider in the world at cyclocross racing. And yeah, I think we were all expecting this day to come, but it comes with a little bit of sadness, as happy as we are to see someone like Claire Honsinger wearing this jersey. And I will say also, if you watched Honsinger at the World Cup in Iowa City, it was clear she had...
And Waterloo.
Yeah, it was clear she had what it took to be the national champion. I mean, she was controlling that race for a large part of that race, and had no doubt that she could ride off the front, ride away from the best racers in the world. So it's going to be exciting to see what Honsinger does in this U.S. National Championships jersey, and we will likely be seeing her soon enough on FloBikes in Europe during the Christmas series, which is just around the corner.
Right. So it starts on Saturday with the Reykjavik series in Wassland Cross. I'll be here in the studio bringing you that live on Saturday morning. And then we get into the cram-packed races all the way through New Year's. And Ian...
I've got a list here.
There we go.
Sunday, for our Canadian viewers, we will have the Namur World Cup. Just Namur... ridiculously classic race. Thursday, the day after Christmas, we will have the Zolder World Cup for our Canadian viewers. Back for all of our viewers, we will have the DVV series returning on Friday with Azencross. We have starred this one, and we will get into that. Sunday is the Super Prestige Diegem. That is not on FloBikes, but Monday is the Matthias Cross Bredin. And then to wrap it all up, on Wednesday, January 1st, is the DVV Series GP Sven Nys, which will...
So if you don't go too hard on New Year's Eve, or even if you do, we're actually having a New Year's party right here. You can they're just going to wake us up, and we're going to rip right into coverage of one of the most classic Sven Nys's race.
Yeah, Mimosas, Bloody Marys, January 1st. It's a race not to be missed. But let's get into the race that we have starred. Azencross, supposedly, according to your Google Translate,
according to the man himself,
the return of Wout van Aert.
And I mean, certainly he has managed expectations. The man is coming back from a potentially career-ending injury, but Wout is lining up in the Leeuwenhout for Azencross. It'll be so good to see him back on the start grid, and he's riding for fitness. You probably are going to see him riding. I don't know if he can help himself. He's going to be riding around there, but so good to see Wout back on his cross bike, back in the races. We don't get to hype a big rematch showdown. He's just back. He's training again. Fans are happy to see it.
No, we do. we do have to hype a major
showdown, throwdown, grudge match.
We have seen video of Wout training in the sand. We have seen video of him reconning the cobbles in Roubaix. Yes, he was horrifically injured at the Tour de France, but that was a long time ago. And I don't think Wout is going to show up to ride around. Wout is going to show up to win some bike races. And Mathieu van der Poel, who we've seen is a little bit vulnerable, he better watch his back.
Okay, you heard it from Ian. Wout van Aert coming back to win. We'll hear from Wout will chime in on this. I hope he does. But yeah, it'll be great to have Wout back in the field, and the whole first period of races is really good. And I said this on the live coverage the other day. Remember, not all of these races are on weekends. So you have races on Fridays and Mondays and midweek races. So pay attention. Our schedule is up. There's a ton of great cross coverage coming. Yeah, we'll have the watch guide up on the site. It is the most wonderful week in cyclocross, in my opinion, and we will be back after the Christmas series on January 1st for GP Spend Nice. Well, you'll be here. I'll be here.
I'll be in Florida, but I'll see you on the 1st.
I'll just be camped out here in the studio. It's going to be a party.